Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be covering 5 builds for mid-season, so if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, Aatrox and Olaf are two champions which have pretty good builds at the moment. Olaf's being the Stride Breaker variant, and Aatrox is being this kind of new split push solo carry variant, which has been gaining a lot of popularity recently. There is an EUS streamer who's definitely been playing it a bit. I don't think he's playing it at the moment, he's opting into some sort of even shove variant. People are just experimenting with Aatrox builds, but overall, this is getting buffed a lot in the mid-season, so this is probably going to become Aatrox's main core build, as Hullbreaker is gaining 10 AD, it's now granting 5% movement speed for a cost increase of 200, which is a relatively big buff. Triforce is gaining 5 AD, 5 attack speed, the threefold strike duration is increasing, which is quite nice, being able to sustain that for a longer amount of time. The stack stage is now also going to have tenacity and size on it, and overall these changes just really benefit Aatrox on the, altogether. Just a lot more damage. The movement speed is of course really valuable for Aatrox. The Triforce passive duration and the attack speed help with his split pushy playstyle. Overall, this build just gonna look towards being quite strong next patch, and I definitely recommend giving it a try, especially if you do play Aatrox. I've also included Olaf here because Olaf is someone who can opt into this build. I don't think you'll choose the Shrouders or Cleaver last item with built-in armor shred on your queue. You might opt into something like a Death Stance, maybe even a GA or a Maw, something like that. There are a couple options there, but overall both champions should benefit from this build. Stridebreaker, of course, is also getting buffed, so we might see some Stridebreaker as well. This build is very selfish, but it allows you to carve a lot better second, third, fourth item, so your mid game will be a lot stronger, which is where these two champs tend to thrive, and it will allow your late game to be a bit stronger as well. So overall, very strong build here, definitely test it. Let's go. Kayle is being, well, she's losing 2 of her core items for, one of them is going to become a mythic, and the other one's going to become a legendary item. Overall, this does adjust her playstyle most likely. This is the AD on hit variant of Kayle, not the AP variant, but of course might be AP on hit variants with the change towards Ginsu's, but overall, Ginsu's as an item is now a lot more tailored towards Kayle, especially if you go wits first, where you end up with an almost perfect damage split, doing a lot of AP on autos combined with a lot of attack damage with the built-in stat on that. Yeah, if you go wits into Ginsu's, into Kraken Slayer, which I imagine will be her core for her AD on hit variant, that should do a lot of damage, and overall just the ramp and the almost perfect split combined with the mythic passive, if you're having 2 or 3 items on top of this, it will help her do a lot of damage. It will allow her to curve quite nicely into the later game. By the time you have these 3 items, you'll be like pushing 16 as well. Bork and Shrouders can round out this build quite nicely. Static might be a good option on Kayle, especially if you want a valuable wave clear tool, because Static it does allow her to, it allows her to farm a lot easier, especially into matchups where she might struggle. So Static might be a good rush option, especially if Noon Quiver within the path, but then you do lose out on the wits end. But it might be a case of you only really take Static into AD matchups, or you can rush something like a Bork into AD matchups. There are options there, definitely. Overall, Kayle definitely looking a lot stronger with these items. AP Kayle isn't really being adjusted whatsoever. There aren't really any buffs or nerfs towards AP items other than the Rabadon's AP increase of 5% on the passive. And there was Lich Bane, which was buffed recently, might become a stronger option on Kayle as well. So overall, on hit Kayle, AD Kayle possibly with the new crit changes. There are options here, definitely. You can maybe also weave in a Storm Razor in amongst this, or an RFC, depending on the game state. But overall, this is going to be most likely her core. It's a Bork Shrouders. I don't really see it being much else. Rengar is going to be a lot stronger next patch, definitely. Rengar is one of the champs which is going to benefit from Prowler's Claw being changed into a exiting stealth dashing item. Overall, he really values that as a tool, especially because he is someone who continuously moves from bush to player, exiting stealth, jumping a lot, so he'll really value this item in general, especially if you're going something like a Duskblade variant, like a full lethality variant, something like an Edge of Night can be quite nice in amongst that. I don't imagine you'll differ far from the Essence Reaver rush though. However, you might start Prowler's rushing. This might be strong enough of an item that Prowler's rush is like an option. But yeah, Essence into something like an IE or a Duskblade, into Prowlers, into Collector. These two items being buffed or well, adjusted and buffed definitely help Rengar a lot. Triforce buffs and Hullbreaker changes do also help Bruiser Rengar. Divine Cinder being kind of nerfed but then slightly adjusted away from the max health more towards the base damage of the item. Just overall, there are options for Rengar definitely. I don't imagine we'll see much tank Rengar anymore. I think tank Rengar is going to get nerfed quite heavily with the Divine Cinder changes. You would tend to just see more Assassin. But overall, this will definitely help Rengar's playstyle. There are lots of options. I don't think he'll go any of the other crit options. I don't really see him going things like Navori, Ginsu's. These items don't really benefit him that much. He hasn't got great AP ratios. It's mostly on his W. But overall, yeah, the lethality option is quite strong for him. In the jungle, Rengar will probably end up going Youmuu's. Youmuu's looks really strong at the moment, has a lot of built-in lethality in the item combined with Rengar's built-in R lethality. Overall, just a really strong combination. Akshan is another champ which I wanted to cover. Akshan's full crit build is going to be adjusted a lot. Akshan does have a full crit variant. It tends to be something along the lines of Kraken into IE, into RFC, into like BT and Bloodthirster. I'm missing an item there. I'm trying to figure what it is. Might be Storm Razor. But there are a couple of... yeah, Collector is usually the third item on Akshan when you're going with lethality. But with the changes to the items, you might start rushing Collector. It does become a lot more of a viable option. Plus 6 lethality on the item is quite nice. The IE becomes a strong second item as well, especially with the Mythic passive giving you 5 AD. But it is a very expensive item, so... And it's not really going to give you any sustain, which is something you've got to be careful about. So Collector, IE, and then you can go something like RFC with AD on the item now. He values a lot of damage, so this does definitely help the item. It is a bit more expensive, so he might differ away from this and go towards something more like Bloodthirster or Storm Razor as a third option. Both these do have their bonuses. Bloodthirster being a really high DPS item, this can give up to 95 DPS towards the end of 95 attack damage towards the end of the game. Plus 18% lifesteal is quite nice on this item. Yeah, Storm Razor, really nice for catching people, does a decent amount of damage, especially if you're maybe picking up some sort of AP item. I don't know if we'll see many Ginsu's variants of Akshan. I don't think his AP ratios are good enough for it, but with the way his passive works, there might be times where you do end up going Ginsu's on Akshan. I just feel like his crit build definitely has a lot of bonuses, especially with the changes. Of course, because some of his damage is an AP split, LDR definitely does have its bonuses now, with magic damage on the Giant Slayer passive. Static Shift, of course, is another possible contender of an option, as a decent amount of AD base, combined with the wave clear value. It might become an option on Akshan. He can queue through waves and then auto it a couple of times and proc Static Shiv, clearing it entirely. If you want to go for a more farm heavy playstyle, this might be the option for you. Maokai is possibly gonna get nerfed, but we don't really know at the moment. I've kind of put him on here as both of his mythic options are being reduced in price, and even though Abyssal is a really valuable rush item on Maokai, Sunfire isn't bad, and if you can go Sunfire into something like Radiant, even Shroud, Abyssal, you might not need to go Abyssal. Fimbulwinter might have to start being like itemized if you do have mana problems, but you might be able to just opt into Mana Flow Transcendence, and that might be enough. But as Fimbulwinter is receiving a slight quality of life, this isn't really going to do anything. You might start opting into Fimbulwinter, especially as like a 4th or 5th option. Something like a Sunfire, Abyssal, Radiant, or even Shroud, Fimbulwinter, Imperial Mandate build might be something which you can try. You can pick up, of course, like different tank items, things like Night Seeks if you're going with more supportive playstyle. For Mail, Fawn, other options like this can work. Imperial Mandate being changed towards a non-mythic item and a legendary option does allow Maokai to pick it up later on into the game. Maokai will probably like go this as a second option along with like Echoes of Helia in the support role, but maybe there are some transferable things there where Maokai can go a more supportive build in the top lane and run this. Overall, this is just a very cheap Maokai build, and if you want to run a util tank in the top lane where you have teammates which are playing strong carry champs which require a lot of income, this can be a good option for you. overall, yeah, those are 5 builds. If you want me to cover any more, I'm happy to have a look at champions and itemization options. But these are definitely some of the champs which are already very strong at the moment and now have good options to possibly become even stronger, or core options which can be exploited. Things like the trio of Triforce, Hullbreak, Sterix being really valuable on Aatrox. And yeah, Kayle benefiting from both the Ginsus and the Kraken changes. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.